Hi guys, I'm Jen Norjani and I'm the English Learner Program Director for Milford, and I have the opportunity to facilitate today's discussion for our community members. Our first principal candidate is Eric Elmore, who currently serves as the principal of Deer Run Elementary School in Indiana and has served there for the past 4 years. Mr. Elmore has more than 18 years of experience in education as a principal, as an assistant principal, and as a teacher. He earned his bachelor's degree from Ball State University and a master's degree from Indiana University, Purdue. So the way this evening will work is Mr. Elmore will come up here and you can ask questions that you have. So, welcome.
Good evening. I appreciate you guys coming out because I know the weather has not been friendly. So the fact that you guys are here really shows your commitment and dedication. So I'm excited. I guess we just jump right in. Any questions? Or would you guys like me to talk a little more about myself?
I was going to ask you if you could talk a little bit about yourself and why you're interested and think you're a good fit for Brookside.
Oh, good question. So a little bit about myself. So you heard some of my background. I've been in teaching and working in Indianapolis, Indiana. I've been in Pike Township School District. I've been there for 18 years. I had the opportunity to do my student teaching there, and then been very fortunate some of the experiences and opportunity they've given me. I taught there for 9 years. I taught second grade for 3 years. I did maternity leave in first grade. I taught fourth and fifth grade as well. And I've also spent 9 years as an administrator there. I was an assistant principal for 5 years at 2 different elementary schools, as well as the last 4 years I've served as principal at Deer Run Elementary. Some background on Deer Run: it's about 51% African American, 41% Hispanic. That other 8% in there is Caucasian, multiracial, and Asian. We have a high ELL population. We also have a high free and reduced lunch population, and that's about 80% plus. So there's a lot of need within our community and within our school. The reason that my wife and I are going to be moving to the area. So exciting news for me. She just finalized a deal for her job today, about 10:30 a.m. She'll be working in Snowvian, just up the street in Marlboro. So we are going to be moving the entire family out here, which she's tremendously excited about, not just because of the new job, but she is originally from Nashua, New Hampshire. So she's coming home. As she says, I'm heading to my people. So she's a New Englander. She loves this area. Her family's still all in Nashua, so she's excited that our 1-year-old son will have the opportunity to really get to know her side of the family. She actually says, I'm ready. She says, you're ready to move out there. Well, why? You know, we watch the Red Sox every night with the MLB package. We watch all the Patriots games. You know how you're supposed to drive on the East Coast because I've taught you. You're fine. All right. She did, however, warn me, I'm going to have to buy a snowblower. I've never had a snowblower, and the thing I'm really interested in, you guys get snow in April? I heard 5 feet in April. It's a little bit different in Indiana. I'm not used to that part. So I'm not much of a snow guy, so I'm going to have to learn to be a snow guy. So one of the reasons I'm interested in Milford is looking at some demographics. I believe very firmly that part of being an educator is giving back and impacting students' lives in a positive way. And as I start to look at some of the demographics in Milford, that's exactly what I see. You guys have a high ELL population. You guys are sitting at about, I think, 28 to 30%. That's exactly what I'm looking for. That's what I come from. That's what I know. That's where I believe you can really impact students' lives. I also look at some of the other need that's in Milford. And again, it mirrors what I'm coming from, and that's what excites me. I want to go somewhere where I can impact lives. I want to go somewhere I can make a difference, and I believe that this would be a wonderful situation for me to do that. Yes, sir.
My name's Tim. I've had a son go through the school, and I've got a younger one on the way in a couple years as well. What would you say is your strength as a leader, and what's one area where you want to, or you know you can continuously improve upon?
They've asked me to repeat the questions.
Yep.
So you asked for one of my strengths as a leader and one area I can continue to grow as a professional. You know, as I start to look at my strengths, I think of them, 3 of them, wrapped up of my head. Relationships. I think relationships are key to everything we do in the schools. And it's not just relationships with the students, which is vital and important, but relationships with the teachers, relationships with the parents and the families, as well as within the community. You know, we always talk about what really impacts a student's life, and in my mind, there are 3 different areas. The school obviously has an impact on the student's life. The family has that impact, and so does the community. And those 3 spheres of influence coming together, they help create our kids. So it's important that we all work together, we're all on the same page, and that doesn't happen without that relationship piece. Also flexibility. Anybody who's been in a school knows that you have to be flexible. There's no other way around it. Things don't always go the way you want. Things change on a dime. And if you're not flexible and you can't adjust your schedule and adapt, the kids are the ones ultimately that lose out. And the other thing, I think I'm very good at analyzing the situation, analyzing the data, analyzing information, which is key. That we as administrators have to be able to sit back and look at the data that we have, the curriculum data, the state assessment data, and we have to make decisions on what works and what doesn't. And if something's not working and the data shows us that, then we need to figure out what do we need to do to tweak it, to twist it, to change it, to scrap it, to make it work. Because as we keep coming back to, it's all about kids. And if we don't have kids at the forefront of our decisions and we're not working for them, then we're not doing what we need to do. Now, a challenge, 2 of them right off the top of my head. I love the school district I came from. I was there for 18 years, but also the challenge, I was there for 18 years. That's what I know. I don't know Massachusetts. I don't know the schools here. I feel very comfortable in saying that I can learn them, but I know there are other candidates that are stronger than me in that respect. But looking at the positive side of that, I'm bringing to the game different ideas, different innovations, different things and different ideas that maybe work and maybe don't work. The other thing is delegating. I'm not the best when it comes to delegating, and I've learned with a young son, I have to be. I can't spend all my time at school like I used to. So that's one of the challenges I have. Now looking again at the positive, when you delegate, you build capacity within your building. And I think that's an important thing that I'm learning to do, which in turn helps build building leaders and building experts. So, good question. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Building on your comment about community, can you give some examples of how you would, I guess, create a community with staff, students, and families?
No, that's a very good question. The question was, building on my statement about communities, how will I build community with my staff, my students, and parents in the community? I think there are a lot of different ways to do that. One, I think you have to open your doors. I'm a firm believer in always having the open door, and I know I've found a lot of success with that. So at my current school, I have an open door policy. Anybody can stop by. You don't have to call, you don't have to text, you don't have to send an email. You can just stop by. You don't have to have a meeting on the books. And quite frequently, I do have parents stop by. I do have guardians stop by my office. Sometimes they're checking in on their student and they want to do a drive-by, and we walk down, we poke our head into classrooms. Sometimes they bring to me a concern or a problem they have. Maybe somebody's being bullied, which is exactly why I have that policy, because it allows me the opportunity to address a problem before it becomes a problem. I've even had parents stop in to just make sure I'm okay. After my wife gave birth, I was obviously tired from staying up, and they wanted to poke their head in because they didn't see me at car rider duty, and they wanted to make sure I was okay. So, which is wonderful. I never expected that. So that's one way. Also, I think part of being a member of a community is not just about taking, but it's also about giving back. So I think we need to instill that upon our kids. Now, one of the ways I've done that in the past is created community service projects. So at Deer Run, we had community service projects that each grade level did. The grade level got to determine what that community service project was. They worked with their kids, they made those decisions, and it could be as easy as writing letters to a veteran or sending cards home to a retirement community. I also had a grade level raise money so that they could purchase art supplies for Peyton Manning's Children's Hospital in Indiana, because they realized that the children who were in the hospital, they needed something to do, and they wanted to give them crayons, coloring books, other things that they could do while they're in the hospital. So that's an important part, because I don't think we talk enough about being a community member with our kids, and that you have to give back. It's not just about accepting. So thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Eric. Quick question. If seeing that you're moving here and you stayed 18 years at the previous school district, what would be one word that you use to describe, that you think the kids would use to describe you as, and what do you foresee for our community here?
I think the word that the kids would use to describe me would be involved, or another one would be visible. I believe very firmly in being out and about in the building as much as possible. I want the kids to see me. I want the kids to know who I am. I don't want them to say, who's that guy walking down the hall, because I'm always hiding in my office, because there's always an email that has to be answered. So I believe in being visible, and part of that is that kids see you, kids talk to you, kids interact with you, kids build a relationship with you, which goes right back to that relationship piece. Same with teachers. Teachers see you, teachers know you're out and about, that you care. I could easily hide in my office and answer emails and save myself the time that evening, but I believe in being out and about and being as involved with those kids as possible. Thank you. Oh, we got two of them.
Just go first.
No, thank you. What are your thoughts on a very hands-on PTO? Or PTA?
What are my thoughts on the very hands-on PTO? I love a PTO PTA. At the building I'm leaving in Indianapolis, when I arrived, we didn't have one. And I worked very closely with some of the parents to create it, to develop it. Now, it's still in that early stages. We're still getting volunteers. We're still determining who we are. But that's something that when you don't have that, you don't realize how much you need, and you miss it. And to me, a PTA and a PTO, it allows you to do a lot of things to support those kids, support those families. You do the fundraiser so that you have the money that you can give back to the kids in the classroom. You do the fundraiser so you have the money that you can create low-cost entertainment alternative for those families that necessarily can't afford those kind of things. And I think it's vital to have that. Now, I believe very firmly in working closely with them. Sitting down with them, having the meetings with the PTA president and the staff before we actually have the PTA meeting, so that we know the direction that we want to take it and we can work together. Because to be honest with you, if we're not working together on that, there's something wrong. We have to make sure that we're on the same page and that we have the same vision moving forward. Yes, ma'am.
What is your experience with technology in the classroom, and what would be your vision for Brookside?
My experience with technology in the classroom and what would be my vision for Brookside. My experience is that we have the school I'm leaving has a lot of technology now. Within the last year and a half, we've gotten a lot more technology. We're not quite to one-on-one, but every grade level has one laptop cart of 30 plus Chromebooks. We've also moved in the direction that we have Google accounts for all of our students. We also make sure that one of our specials throughout the course of the day is computers. So the students have art, they have music, they have gym, they have library, and they have computers, because we see the need for the students to understand some of those basic programs, the Excel spreadsheets, the PowerPoint, the word processing. We want to make sure that they are capable, especially as they start to move to the middle school and high school level. They've experienced it. I always laugh because you walk into our computer lab that first day with kindergartners, and they're all touching the screen. They don't quite understand that you have to use the mouse. So again, getting technology in the hands of the young ones as early as possible is vital. Because they see it at home, they use it at home. We want to make sure that they see it at school and they use it at school as well. I also like the technology piece for the inquiry. Have you guys started doing a lot of inquiry? So let me give you a little background. So the inquiry is where you give the students a task. and you let them go out and you do the research. You let them use all that research, pull pictures, write a little essay, you can put it in a PowerPoint, you can make a poster of it, you can have them do the poster board and the models and everything else. I think the inquiry needs technology, and technology needs the inquiry. Yes, sir.
In your opinion, what do you feel are the critical components of a quality special education program at the elementary level?
In my opinion, what are the important components of a special education program at the elementary level? That's a loaded question. There are a lot of different needs and different eligibilities that you have to take a look at when you start to talk about some of the special needs students and their needs. But what I can tell you is that the needs of the students drive the services. So what we have is that as we start to look at our students and we start to determine their eligibility and their needs, that's how we determine how many minutes they receive. That's how we determine how much support that they get on a daily basis. What I like to see in some of my resource teachers is I want somebody, again, who has a relationship with the student, who knows the students, who cares about the students, who has that intimate relationship where they can walk up and they can support them in their hardest times, their most difficult and challenging times. I want my resource teachers to be consistent. I want to know that if they have to be in this room at this time to support these kids, they're going to be in this room at that time to support the kids. I want to know that my resource teachers, they understand the elements of a nice, strong mini lesson. I want to know that they're looking at the teaching points. I want to know that my resource teachers are communicating on a daily basis with the teachers in that classroom. Without that communication, a lot of things fall apart when it comes down to students and their IEPs. I also want to know that my resource teachers are communicating with my parents, that they're letting them know we had success today and celebrating the wonderful things that are taking place in that classroom. I want them to have that relationship with the parents, say, we had a hard time today, and have a plan in place so that when we come back tomorrow, we can move forward. We can pretend like it's a clean slate. We have a solid plan as we move forward, and we can do that. That communication piece is vital in everything that a resource teacher does. They have to be strong at communicating because, again, we always say this, it comes back to the kids. It comes back to the kids' needs. And if you're not communicating, you're not talking to parents, and you're not talking to teachers, you don't have a relationship with the kids, they're the ones that suffer. And I've seen it too often, and it breaks your heart. So hopefully that answered what you're looking for.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I have a whole group of people at the back. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you speak a second language, and why or why not?
No, I do not. If my mother's watching this, she's shaking her head right now. In high school, she pushed me to. And in typical high school fashion, I knew more than my mother. I regret that. So to answer your question, I do not know a second language, and the reason I don't is because I didn't listen to my mother. I'm sorry, Mom. Any others? Wait, I have two of you.
What qualities do you look for when hiring a teacher?
Oh, that's a good one. You know, I read an article the other day by Michael Full, and he's an educational leadership author. And to be honest with you, the article itself, it obviously wasn't that meaningful to me because I don't remember the title of it. But one thing stood out in that article, and it stood out to me for two different reasons. It said, what was it? The single biggest impact on student learning is quality teaching. My first thought was, duh. Anybody who's been associated with a school as a teacher, as an administrator, as a parent, as a student, you know that. You could have given that. They could have saved a lot of money in research. My second thought was, that's why it's so vital to get the right people on the bus and in the school and the wrong people off. Now, I haven't answered your question yet, but the qualities I look for, I need somebody that cares. I need somebody who is invested in these kids, who looks at that child and sees their own child. I want them to have a heart. I need them to see these as little adults and that we're helping pave the way and guide them to future success. I also want somebody who's reflective. I want somebody who looks at who they are, looks at their practice on a daily basis, and says, you know what? I didn't do that right. I need to fix it. Here's how I can do it. I need them to think about what they're doing, how they can grow, how they can improve. Because teaching is not a perfect science. I think we all know that. Even the best teachers have rough days. And that's fine. It happens. You step outside your comfort zone, you try a different instructional technique that you've never tried before, you might fall on your face, and that's fine. That's part of growing, that's part of learning. But you have to be able to say, all right, here's where I screwed up, here's how I can do it better, let's try it again tomorrow. I also want somebody who is instructionally sound, who knows good instruction, and knows how to implement on a daily basis, even with some of our toughest kids. And finally, I want somebody who's data-driven, who can sit down and look at the data and say, you know what, I have 20% of my class that doesn't get it. I need to go back to that core curriculum. I need to reteach this. I need somebody who can look at the data and say, you know what, these 3 children are really struggling with double-digit addition. I need to pull them for a small group. So there are a lot of qualities, and I've just named a few, but those are a few that I look for. And I'll be very honest, I have had great success in the people I've hired. They've come on board, and they hold many of the same values I did, and they've been very successful at what they've done. Yes?
To build off of that, in your 18 years in the district or the latter part of being an administrator, I'm sure you've come across teachers that you'd like to change a little bit quicker than usual or you would like. How have you worked with them? How have you coached them? And how has that led to success in your building?
You were asking about teachers that need to grow professionally, is what I hear you say,
Correct.
and asking how I've helped facilitate some of those things in my building. I think every situation is different. There's not a cookie cutter model for making that happen in your building. I wish there was, and make my life a whole lot easier. Every individual is different, every situation's different. And I think anytime you make some of those decisions and you look to how can I support and help a teacher grow and improve their professional practice, you have to look at a variety of different things. First, you have to look at who they are. Some teachers, you just have to challenge them and they will take off. Some teachers, you have to sit there with your thumb on them. Some teachers, they have to know that you're right there with them the entire step of the way. You also have to look at exactly what you're asking them to learn, what you're asking them to do, because that will, again, tell you a different path depending on what it is. Some of the things I've done, and I've done a number of things, as I said, based upon different individuals. I've given veteran teachers mentors with people who I know are strong in a specific instructional practice where that teacher is struggling. I've paired teachers up with an instructional coach. I've allowed teachers to go to other schools where I know there's a teacher who is strong in one specific area, and they've been allowed to sit there and observe 1 time, 2 times, maybe an entire week, because I know that's what they need. There have been times I've asked teachers to attend professional development because that's what they need. I've also assigned, I didn't assign, I asked them to read a book with me because I thought that us sitting down and having some of those professional conversations based upon some of the things we read would be beneficial. So again, I've been very fortunate in the people and the professional I've worked with, and many of those things have been successful and have helped them grow and learn. I don't ever want to say that they're a finished product, but I think that it's gotten them started down that road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one last question.
Yes,
You were
ma'am.
talking about data-driven, if I recall correct. I don't know if you're aware of any challenges for the district, such as math, and if there is, how do you plan on overcoming those obstacles, and do you have any goals set already?
No, you'd ask about some of the data, and you'd ask about some of the challenges at the district level, and if I have a plan for overcoming some of that. It's interesting because with the kindergarten through 2nd grade school, there's not a lot of data out there on the Department of Education, because a lot of the data is 3rd grade all the way through 5th grade. But what I can say is I have looked at the 3rd grade data, and I did pick it apart, and I realize that it does not speak directly to Brookside, but I think we can glean a lot of information from that data that to tell us about the second grade programs. One of the things that stood out in that data was specifically math, as you mentioned, with our ELL students. When you start to compare the percentages with Milford compared to the Massachusetts state percentages, there was a discrepancy, a double-digit discrepancy, which tells me that there's something that we really need to look at and address. I have talked to Dr. McIntyre about it, and he was very clear that there are things in place to address that. And he specifically mentioned hands-on materials, tactile, kinesthetic, moving things around, and that there were some of those things in place, and that we hope to really reap the benefits of that further on down. As for goals, I really don't have any until I sit down and take a look at kindergarten, first and second grade, what data we have. Where are the students coming in? Where are they leaving at? Identifying specific strengths and challenges, and then asking ourselves those challenges, what can we do better? What do we need to do? Is there another program out there that we need to identify? One thing at my current building we notice is that when you start to look at kindergarten, first and second grade, we had tremendous problem with phonemic awareness and phonics. Now, if you start to look at strong readers, to me, there are 5 skills that every reader has to have. They have to have phonemic awareness, they have to have phonics, they have to have fluency, accuracy, and comprehension. Now, specifically, in those primary grades, you need the phonemic awareness and the phonics piece. We didn't have that. We needed that. So with a team in my building, we sat down and looked at a number of different programs that could address that. Now, we looked at not just programs that could address that, but we wanted programs that could address, that could be done as a whole group, the entire class, or a small group. We wanted programs that could be done with our teachers or our paras or IAs, depending on the need. And we were able to identify a program called Haggerty that focused on that. It was a scripted program, which is what our paras and IAs needed. It was something that was very short and sweet. Typically it was 10 to 15 minutes, but when you got in the rhythm of it, it was about 7 to 10 minutes. It was something that all the kids knew. You could ask them and you could listen to them. It was pattern based. For example, one of the things they would do is the teacher would say cat. Excuse me, she would say last letter, cat. T, dog, G, G. The kids all knew it. What we found is that we started looking at our data. Coming in, less than 1% of our kindergarten population knew all of their letters. None of them knew all of their sounds, and it stands to reason that none of them were reading on grade level. But by the end of the year, with that program and some other things that we were able to put into place, we found that we had 90% of our kindergarten students who knew all of their letters, 88% of our kindergarten students who knew all of their letter sounds, and 44% were at grade level. Now, obviously we want to improve that. But to be the first year we've done that, we were tremendously excited, and we know we've given those kids a fighting chance in first grade. So again, I go back to, I need to sit down and take a look at the data. But once we do identify those things, we need to have those hard conversations. What can we do to turn that deficiency, that challenge, into a strength? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. How have I and how will I support first-year teachers in the building? I'm coming from a district that they do a lot to support first-year teachers. One of the things that my district has done is that they have first-year teacher meetings. And what those are, they're about once a month, and they have all the first-year teachers in the district come together and they cover a specific topic. It might be classroom management, it might be data analysis, it could be any of that. Now, that's wonderful, but those are, to me, very broad topics. So we have gone ahead in Deer Run Elementary School, and we've done the same thing, but we've made it specific to Deer Run. We've sat down and we've looked at our reading block. What does that look like? We've talked about the different chunks. We've modeled it for them. We've shown them videos just because we want them to know what it is. We've introduced them to experts within the building because, as we always talk about, the experts are among us, and we want them to know there are resources in the building that you can go to. You don't have to come to the administrator if you don't feel comfortable. You don't have to come to the assistant principal, the instructional coach, probably the person next door in the classroom next door who can be there for you. And we've developed, it was only 4 or 5, but different sessions like that to help those teachers. I also make it a point to all my first-year teachers, assign them a mentor. somebody in the building, hopefully typically in the same grade level that they can go to, just to vent, just to talk, just for ideas, to help guide them along the right way, to put them in touch with the right person. It's tremendously important, because any teacher who's been a first-year teacher, you realize it's a challenge. You come out of college and it sounds great, but theory and practice are two different things. So we need to provide as much support for those first-year teachers as possible to help them be successful, because in the end, again, it all comes back to the kids. When they're successful, we know our kids are going to find success as well. Thank you.
So actually, we're unfortunately out of time for Eric, so I'm going to give him a round of applause.
It's not often I get applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
Ms. Malachor Curran has more than 18 years experience in education as an assistant principal, special education team chair, and teacher. She earned her bachelor's degree from the State University of New York at Cortland, a master's degree from Simmons College, and a certificate of advanced graduate study from the State University of New York. She'll be first telling you a little bit about herself, some background, and why she chose to apply to Milford Public Schools.
Hi, everybody. Very official with the microphone. I'm Amy Mulcurran. I'm honored to be standing in front of you as a candidate for the Brookside principalship. I'm really excited by the thought of Brookside. I'll tell you a little bit about my background, and hopefully you'll feel the match emerge as I've gotten to know more about all of you here in Milford and Brookside. I am a teacher. I was an elementary classroom teacher for 14 years. I've taught kindergarten, second grade, third grade, and fourth grade for just 1 year. So I love teaching. I love talking about teaching and talking about instruction and being innovative with teaching and instruction. That's really where my heart is. I think I'm a nice match for the Milford Public Schools because I'm currently in Framingham, and my favorite thing about that is the rich diversity of Framingham. We have a very, very diverse community, but the thing that I miss from my time in the Grafton Public Schools is the connections of a smaller district. So I was really excited to dig a little deeper into the Milford job because I think K-2 is really where my teaching heart is. I'm a national board certified teacher in early childhood education. And I'd love to be in a community as diverse as Milford, but still keep the connections of a smaller district and connect often with my colleagues and families and teachers and kids. And your children's development, both academically and social emotionally, is my highest priority. I lead from a place where I want all kids to have excellent and an excellent education. And I think that in the building I currently work, that's what they kind of expect, is we'll talk about is what's best for kids. So that's a little bit about me. Can I open up for questions? I'll repeat them so we can hear them.
I'll get started. My name is Tim. I've had an older son go through Brookside, and I have another one about 2 years on the way. What would you say is your biggest strength as an administrator and one area that you'd still like to improve in?
Sure. So the question was, what I think is a strength for me right now, and what do I think that I'm still wanting to improve on? I think that my strength right now is in my connections. I like to spend time with kids. I like to know them. I like to know them deeply. I believe in building relationships first. So I think my strength is that I prioritize relationship building both with your children and the staff that supports them and with all of you. I build my work on relationships. So I think that that's something that I work really hard at and that I'm good at. I think the thing that I'd like to work on is, I'm a really reflective person. So as a principal, being kind of the person in charge of it all, what are my places to reflect? What are my ways to know how to reflect and how well I'm doing? Where do I get feedback and know that I'm being really successful for all of the people I work with? So I think that that's going to be a learning curve for me. I'm an assistant principal now, and I work really closely with my principal. We give each other a ton of feedback, and we discuss most things pretty thoroughly. We have a really nice working relationship, but as a principal, where are my opportunities to reflect on my practice and to connect with other people and get their feedback on how I'm doing? So I think that's something I want to think pretty creatively on what's going to be my system for that. How am I going to think deeply about what I'm doing and what are going to be the measures of success?
Thank you.
Hi.
What is your approach to discipline?
My approach to discipline is like the question was, what is my approach to discipline? It's built on relationships, as I stated. So hopefully, if something happens, we already have a relationship. I have a relationship with the staff, with the family, with the student, hopefully. And then when things do go wrong, I lean on that relationship. And I would say my approach is restorative. I've worked a lot with Suffolk University over the past year on restorative practices, and really my approach with kids and with everyone I work with is if something goes wrong, our focus is on repairing the harm. So something's happened and there's been harm that's done. I've always been a really logical consequences kind of person. I've never been very punitive, but this whole shift in focus to repairing the harm has been a really great shift. So I'll often meet with kids, anyone involved, and talk about what was the harm that was done and how are we going to repair the harm? What will it take to repair the harm? And both talking to the person that was harmed and the harmer and talking about what is the work we need to do, because something has happened in your relationship now. There's a consequence there for your relationship where there's been harm. So really the most important thing for you to do is to repair that harm. I call families pretty frequently. If I have kids that come to work with me or help me or provide an eyewitness, I always call home. I just let you know, hey, we met today and this is kind of what we were working on, so that there's never a surprise and we can problem solve together if needed. So I keep everyone pretty informed. I work in partnership with the teaching staff so that we can come up with solutions collectively on how to help things change if something needs to change moving forward, or if someone has a need that we're not exactly meeting, how can we make that better?
Hi. What are your top 3 expectations of students as well as teachers?
So the question is, what are my top 3 expectations for students, and what are my top 3 expectations for teachers? And I think I love this work. I want teachers to love this work, and I want kids to love the work when they're at school. I hope that kids are engaged and interested and excited and running in the door every morning. And so I think as long as kids are doing that and they're working hard and they're having all their needs met, I think if centering on the core values that already exist in the school, that kids are respectful, responsible, and safe. Those are great expectations. So as long as they know what that looks like and they've practiced it, then I expect them to uphold it. They know what it looks like and they have all their needs met. They have the things that they need. I think those are fair expectations for kids, and that they work hard. I think teachers, it's similar. If you go lean back on those core values, if they're just respectful to each other as a community, responsible to really commit to giving kids everything they need. I tend to phrase conversations with teachers in terms of who's responding well to the way we're presenting information or the way we're teaching, and who's not. And so I think a big expectation that I have is that a teacher is ready to engage in that and to say, what do we need to do differently? For kids who aren't responding well the way we're teaching, that they're flexible and ready to do things differently. Hi.
Hi. How would you address the issue of teachers who feel that there's a lack of administrative support? And then also, how would you empower more leaders?
So the question is, how would I address teachers' concern that there wasn't administrative support, and then how to empower teacher leaders? I think my visibility is the ground layer of support. I like to be in classrooms a lot. I like to be pretty regular in the rooms and seeing what their day is like, seeing what their class is like, spending time with them, talking to kids about their learning. I also have a very open door policy for families and staff and kids. So for teachers to be able to come with really any question and feel like it's safe and I'll help them, I think that that's a way that they feel supported. The last piece of support kind of leans into the developing teacher leaders is just celebrating success and celebrating all the great things that are happening in classrooms and giving teachers an opportunity to learn from each other and with each other. I talked a lot with the teachers about that our greatest strength is our collective efficacy, our power together. So giving them lots of opportunities to be together and to debate their teaching and their practice and to share their ideas and to highlight things that are really successful. I think you start to see teachers willing to take on a little more leadership once they've got a forum to kind of talk and debate and feel safe taking risks and trying new things. So giving them the time and the structure to their day and to their professional time so that they can do that work. Hi.
What do you feel are the critical components of a quality special education program at the elementary level?
I am a special education teacher. I've done a lot of work in special education. So I think a lot of my focus has been on really giving kids everything they need in a least restrictive environment with their peers. So in both my time in Grafton and my time in Framingham, I've worked very hard at setting kids up to have all of the supports they need in their classrooms, ready to go, and developing co-teaching for teachers so that teachers can kind of share their strengths and work together as co-teachers. So I've put a lot of time into co-teaching and the development of co-teaching. So in terms of the special education program, it's one that teachers are working together to deliver instruction that meets everyone's needs, and one that's closely monitored so that we know what we're doing is having an impact and kids are learning, and that it's data-driven and we're responsible for their progress and that they're growing and learning. Hi. Question from the back row?
How do you address climate around in the building about teachers, students, parents, or issues that might arise around?
Okay, so the question is, I want to make sure I rephrase it right. How to address school climate? Teacher morale, sure. I think some of the things that I talked about a little bit start to do that, where teachers really get to spend time together and talk about their practice and sort of hear about the other great things that are happening and help each other. I think you start to build trust there with each other in your ability to say, like, this is really hard for me right now. I can't quite get this concept across. How are you doing it? And teachers start to share ideas. So I think that's one piece. Something that I've started this year as a larger building is putting a new format onto staff meetings where teachers can present a variety of topics and you can choose which you go to. So we've identified teachers who want to share something that they're working on or something that they've just learned or have gotten better at, and they present for 20 minutes, and teachers can choose, to go and to learn more about that, and they have some choice in what they're doing, and they're learning from each other as opposed to learning from me. And then the work on restorative practices that I talked a little bit about in terms of repairing the harm. The foundation of that program is a community build, that you really have to build your community and have a community that feels comfortable and safe and knows each other well in order to work together. So the classrooms in the building I'm at right now all do a community circle where they just connect and bond and know more about each other. It's also a venue for kids to bring concerns or problem-solving opportunities when something's going wrong at recess. So this year I've started offering staff circles. So I offer them every other week. They're completely voluntary, and staff come and we have a structure to the conversation, and it's really just to build our connections to each other. So I think that's had a lot of impact. People are pretty interested and they come. And I like to just surprise teachers, during Teacher Appreciation Week, I hung room service tickets on their doors, and they could order a drink and a snack, and we delivered them. Or notes in mailboxes, or I email teachers quite a bit in terms of, here's a great thing I saw in your classroom, so they feel recognized too. So I think it's a lot of little ways, but you start to get momentum that way, and I think that the teachers, if they are friendly with each other and enjoy being with each other, that starts to get a nice momentum going too. Hi.
Other than the obvious of a new school district and a new town, what do you think is your biggest challenge coming into Milford, and how would you plan to attack it?
Okay, the question is, other than new building and new town, what's the biggest challenge? For me, my biggest challenge is it will be my first principal position. I'm excited for that. I'm ready for that. I've worked really hard to build up to that, but it's my first principal position. So I want to make sure that I have the support I need for myself in place so that I can be strong and be the best principal I can be. I want to make sure I'm seeking feedback in ways that are really helpful for me, that I give everyone opportunities to give feedback that's real and constructive and that can push my work forward. I'm pretty reflective. I like to debate impact. So what are the things that I can put in place to know I'm being successful and to know when I need to change? So what does my support group look like? I think that's one of the biggest challenges is identifying, I'm the one. What do I need now? So that's new. I'm married to a principal, so I have some idea of the type of support needed. So whether or not our house can handle two of them either. So.
Throughout these years as an assistant principal and teacher, and how would you describe the student population today, and what is the biggest shift you've seen?
Sure. For me, a major shift is I did a lot of my teaching career in upstate New York, which is extremely different than the Framingham Public Schools and the Milford Public Schools. So it was a little more rural, not country rural, but not as urban as I feel. So it was a big shift when I switched to Framingham, and the idea of connecting with all of my families in Framingham was really a big thing. How was I going to connect? Framingham is a school choice district, so my kids live all over a very big city. Some of them with 45-minute bus rides, and kids come to school. I think one of the biggest shifts I've seen is kids come to school with a lot on their mind. So what can we do to help make sure that they feel comfortable socially and emotionally and ready to learn? So how do I know more about them and know more of what they need and give them places to have their needs met so that they don't have quite so much on their mind? Maybe it's that they've been in two different settings, or maybe that it's just how things are, but kids seem to have a lot on their mind. And when I had just my one classroom, maybe I didn't see that in the broader stroke. But I think that's been a major shift. Anyone else? Okay.
How do you involve families and staff in decision making?
So the question is, how do I involve families and staff in decision making? So I think I like the formal structures of school council, that it's a representative of the community and families and staff. I think that's a great decision making board to drive improvement and larger scale decisions. So a really rich school council that meets and has real work to move forward on. I think that's one small piece. I also I like having staff decision-making teams, that can kind of represent their peers and be a person who brings information back and forth and insight and ideas back and forth with their peers. I tend to do a lot of research before making a big decision. I ask a lot of questions, and I'm really committed to making sure we've really tapped into everybody. So one thing that I've worked really hard on this year at Dunning is helping all of our families feel like they're part of our school. Framingham is a really big city. It's kind of a north-south type of city, and helping all of our families feel like they are important and they have a voice in school. So we tend to have a small population represented for things like PTO. So I've started talking to some of our families about why not? What is it that doesn't feel great about PTO? And I've learned a ton. So next year the plan is to completely flip PTO on its head and do things that will be fun together. One idea was, could the art teacher host a paint night? And people would come and paint, and we could still do PTO business and things that need to be done, but could we do something fun that people were excited to do along with it? Or I have a mom, she's wonderful. She's from Brazil, and she has a large network of moms that she knows from the building. And she says, we like to have fun. And many of our families like to have fun. So we talked about having more music and dancing at events and things like that for our whole community. So we're rethinking what is the purpose of school events, and how do we tap into something that's exciting to everyone and everyone will want to come to, because really the purpose is to bring everybody together. So if our current system isn't doing it, like, what else can we do and how can we change? Okay. Yes.
I'll go off the beaten path, so to speak. What has been a book that you've read personally or professionally, and how have you applied that to your profession?
So the question is, what is a book I've read personally and professionally, and how have I applied it? I read a great book at the beginning of this year called Between the World and Me by the author Ta-Nehisi Coates. And it's someone's autobiography about, he's similar in age to me. We grew up living the same circumstances, the same major events in the world, but he was from a different cultural background and saw all those same events and times and places and going to college and getting married and started a family in a really different way than I did because of his culture and because of who he was. So that was a really exciting book for me personally. It helped me realize that I need to look at the world through other people's lenses. I need to realize that their experiences are not the same as mine, and that impacts who you are and who you become. And so that's a personal book. I've loved it. Professionally, right now, I'm reading The Innovator's Mindset. I like that. That's exciting. It's about, encouraging innovation in school and how to really do that and plant those seeds and celebrate teacher leadership and get ideas to grow and get a structure where kids can really create and build and learn through a really hands-on way. So that's what I'm reading right now professionally. I like it.
Thank you.
So in the last 2 minutes, we
Yes.
give some remarks that you would like to share with the audience that may not have asked you.
Great
Sure.
questions for us.
Can I ask a question? I can ask a question?
Just thought I'd throw it out there.
You're going to look to me.
I'm an assistant principal of a K-5 with 500 students of strikingly similar demographic to Brookside, actually, when I looked at the numbers of students with high needs or English learners or students with special needs. And I love what I do. I'm really excited by what I do. So when I move to principal, I really want it to be the right match and the right fit, and I want everyone to feel that, and I want to feel that too. So from your community and parent perspective, what would a successful first year look like for the Brookside principal? What are you hoping to see in a first year?
I think engagement and excitement is really big from a parent perspective, both being engaged with the teachers as well as the students. You mentioned being present. I think listening, being a listener, relationship building, those are 3 big aspects, especially coming in to a new community in a new role.
Sure.
Good answer.
Anybody else?
Off the cuff.
Successful first year.
I like the innovation as well. I personally am excited. I grew up in this town. My children, I have one that's at Brookside now. I had one that was there for 3 years before. And I like the innovation concept. I like to see new and different ideas, and I think it's great for the kids to see fresh, different faces and different ideas, and how do you assimilate into that, and what different concepts can they learn about from different angles that maybe they weren't exposed to before.
Okay. Nobody wants to change the parking patterns or anything like that?
So I'd like to say thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks everybody for coming out on this rainy night.
Hello, I have the pleasure of introducing Carrie Sankey. She currently serves as the principal of Robin Elementary School and the Roland Green Preschool in Mansfield. She has served there for the past 3 years. Dr. Sankey has more than 25 years of experience in education as a principal, assistant principal, department chair, and teacher. She earned her bachelor's degree from the School of Museum of Fine Arts, a master's degree from Lesley University, a certificate of advanced graduate study from Fitchburg State University, and a doctorate from Lesley University. She'll introduce herself and then open it up to questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Carrie Sankey. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and a little bit earlier this evening I had the opportunity to visit the Brookside School. It seems like a wonderful place. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to potentially be a principal at the Brookside. There are a lot of great opportunities for professional growth for myself. But also I really would look forward to the opportunity to working with teachers and students and families here in Milford. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I can tell you a little bit about myself. So I've been in education for 27 years. I student taught actually at the Robinson Elementary School as part of my undergrad and was hired there shortly thereafter. I spent my first 9 years as a visual arts teacher in that district and have had the opportunity to have many leadership opportunities from there. I've taught at all grade levels, beginning with elementary, then moving to middle school, and then on to the high school, where I became the department chair K through 12 for visual and performing arts. As Lisa mentioned earlier, I began my career shortly after graduating from the School of the Museum of Fine Arts and Tufts University with a degree in art education. And then a few years into my teaching career, I got my master's in elementary education from Lesley University. I then had twin girls who are now 19. They're going into their second year of college. I took a year off with them, and then when I returned to work, I had the opportunity to move to the middle school where I taught art to grades 6, 7, and 8, and I was also working alongside the district visual and performing arts coordinator, K through 12, on different curriculum initiatives such as integrating the visual arts into the social studies curriculum and into the literacy curriculum prior to the establishment of the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks in 1999. So I began my leadership that way in working with collaborative teams of teachers. While I was at the middle school, I went on to Fitchburg State, where I received my Certificate of Advanced Graduate Study in Educational Leadership and Management, and also my certificate as Fine Arts Director. Then went on to the high school, where I was the Visual and Performing Arts Coordinator, K through 12, and worked with all arts folks in the district, and had the opportunity then to jump into administration full-time, which I was thrilled to have that opportunity. I was an assistant principal at the high school for 1 year, then was an assistant principal at the middle school for 8 years. And during that time, I was working on my PhD at Lesley University and also raising my children. So that was really challenging. It took me quite a while to finish, almost 8 years, and graduated last May with my PhD, along with my daughters, who also graduated from high school. So that was really a thrill. And towards the tail end of my program, I had the opportunity to become the elementary principal at the Robinson Elementary and also at the Rolling Green Preschool. So my school currently has 730 students. The preschool has about 120 students, and I manage over 100 staff. So I'm most drawn to the principal position at the Brookside because I'm really excited to work in a smaller school where I can really focus my energy on instructional leadership and collaboration with teachers and families, and really get to know families and really get to know students. And for myself as a professional, I'm looking forward to having a change because I feel like that's how you grow as a professional, is to learn and work in other districts under different central office leadership. So, thank you for this opportunity.
I'll start. My name's Tim, and I've had a boy go through Brookside, and I have another one on the way in a couple of years as well. What would you say is your biggest strength as a leader, and then one area where you know you still want to focus on?
Sure. So you're asking what my biggest strength is and an area where I want to grow. So one of the biggest areas of strengths for me are working and building collaborative relationships with teachers and families. I also have a strong background in curriculum and instruction, and one of the areas that I'm looking to grow in would be in getting to know a different and more diverse community. So where I work currently in Mansfield, our community is slowly becoming more diverse, but it's not quite to the level of diversity that I think I've come to learn that Milford is. So I feel that getting to know and work in a more diverse community would be an area that I would like to grow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What has been your most rewarding day professionally the past year?
So the most rewarding day that I have had professionally in the last year, there's been a lot of them. In the school that I'm in currently, we have a growing population of EL students. One of the students that I can think of that just really stands out, where I feel I felt a tremendous sense of reward, not necessarily for myself individually, but being the leader of a school where these individuals, where my teachers work, is that we had a family move into us from Syria who had sustained a lot. in that environment. And we had a student come to us as a grade 1 student, and he spoke no English. And so it was really hard for him to come into our school and get acclimated. One of the things that I was able to do was work with my EL teacher, who has a tremendous network of parents outside of the school that she was able to reach out to help this family get acclimated to the community. And by the end of the school year, this little guy came up to me on the last day and said, "Thank you. I feel so much joy when I'm here." And just to see his little face light up, it was such a reward to see that he had learned and he was able to speak English and that he was understanding what others were saying to him. That was a huge reward. And so throughout that journey, he made lots of great friends and, slowly got acclimated to our school. So that was a huge reward for me.
Describe your vision of an effective school and how would you communicate that?
So my vision of an effective school would be one where students come into the school feeling safe and feeling welcomed. Parents come into the school feeling welcomed and that we are working together as a team. Another example of a way that I feel a school would be effective would be that we have teachers who are very caring and committed towards working with children coming from all different kinds of backgrounds. One of the ways that I would communicate that, we have a program at my school, which I know you've probably heard of, called PBIS. It's Positive Behavior Intervention Supports. So what we talk about is having clear school-wide expectations. And so under that umbrella, we talk about being kind, safe, and responsible. And so that's one of the ways that we communicate that sort of big picture vision out to families and out to students, and inside with our teachers as well. It's communicating that vision and maintaining that vision and revisiting it and reminding folks of that on a continuous basis. So another way that I can talk about an effective school is to make sure that when things are going well, we're celebrating those positive attributes, but when things may not be going so well, that we're providing supports. And we're working together as a team to provide those supports. So when I was meeting with a group of teachers earlier, they were asking me, how do you address the social emotional needs of students? So an effective school not only addresses the academic piece, but it's also addressing the social emotional piece and all of the pieces that come along with that. So it's sort of a whole picture. It's looking at children holistically. It's looking at them and nurturing them not only as academic learners, but also from a social emotional perspective as well, and communicating that out.
Could you tell me what you feel are some of the critical components of a quality special education program at the elementary level?
Sure. So some of the quality components of a special education program at the elementary level. So some of our students come to school with many different needs. So in the special education realm, the first and the biggest component actually of a quality special education program would be that we are providing the best appropriate education for special needs students in the least restrictive environment. That's first and foremost. The second component that I feel is incredibly important in terms of a quality special education program is that students in special education are receiving the same curriculum as students that are in the general education setting. So they are receiving and have access to the same learning as children in the general education setting. And really, what happens is that we rely a lot upon our teachers, our special educators, who have the skills to be able to take that same curriculum that they're receiving in the general ed population and modify it so that it's accessible for those students in special education. That's another big piece. And then depending on the different needs of our special education population, we have students who might receive special education support in the classroom with the help of a special educator. We have students who might have medical conditions that make them medically fragile as part of our special education population. We might have students who are on the autism spectrum. So it's making sure that we have the staffing and the programming and the oversight to make sure that students in each of those populations' needs are being met, and that when a student's needs are not being met, that adjustments are made in a timely way. Thank you.
What are your thoughts on PTO groups and just overall parent involvement?
So we have a wonderful PTO group at the school that I work at currently. It's called MISA. I think that you had asked earlier about effective leadership, and effective leadership also involves parents being involved in the school. So the PTO is one of the biggest ways that I think parents can be involved in the school. I work very closely with our MISA currently. We have a board that spans not only my building, which is K through 2, but also the school next door to me, which is 3 through 5. And so I meet on a regular basis, and I attend the board meetings of that parent group so that I can have an idea about the kinds of things that they want to bring into the school. So I welcome ideas. We meet actually in the summer and try to plan out different events throughout the year. But I think that parent organization that can bring in opportunities for children to get together during the school day or outside of the school day where they can be social with one another is a wonderful resource, and I fully support that. Some of the things that we've done at my school is we have something called a kindergarten social, and that takes place in the fall. And with my MISA, we work together and we have a group come in and perform music. We provide popsicles for the kids. The kids come with their parents, and it's after school, usually from like 5 to 6:30. We have the toe jam puppets come in, and it's a great time for the kids to come in and get together with other friends from their classes, and it's an opportunity for parents to meet other parents. So I think anytime we can involve parents, and a PTO is a great way to kind of have an organized approach to that. Another way that I've worked with the MISA in my school is that we do on-site field trips in addition to classes going out and visiting other places. So we've brought in programs that support our curriculum. So for example, one of the things that I worked with the MISA on was bringing in the Discovery Science Museum, which came in and they did hands-on activities with the kids that addressed the Common Core standards for science in grades 1 and 2. And then another activity that we did was we did a kindergarten garden night where we had students come in, and the MISA helped organize the local garden club, and they came in and they had a little planting activity and other gardening type activities for students to participate in. So it can be fun, but it can also be learning. So anytime I feel like we can involve parents, I think that's a bonus.
I had a question. When you're observing classrooms, what specifically are you looking for, both from a student perspective and a teacher? And then how do you deliver that feedback, whether it's negative or positive?
So how would I go about observing classroom teachers? What do I want to see from teachers, and what do I want to see from students, and how would I give that feedback? So when I go into classrooms, one of the things that I like to do as a principal is be very visible around in the building. I like to make frequent walkthroughs in classrooms And I like to visit classrooms at certain times of the day and then change it up and go at a different time of the day so I can see something different. So one of the things that I like to see when I go into a classroom is I like to know that the teacher has a clear set of objectives for whatever the lesson is that they might be teaching. And so those objectives could be given verbally, or they might be written out on the whiteboard or on the easel, or they might be projected up on the smartboard. But children know that these are the things we're going to learn today, or we're going to learn during this lesson. Then I want to know that the teacher has a clear plan to carry out those objectives, and that there are smooth transitions from one part of that lesson to another. So for example, in a literacy lesson, they might start out with a whole group, then they might break off and do small group, then they might do some independent work. But I want to see clear and smooth transitions happening throughout that lesson and being carried out by the teacher and by the students. And then at the end of the lesson, I want to see a summarizer or an exit ticket of sorts, where the teacher is checking in with students to gauge their understanding, because I think that tells the teacher or informs the teacher on the level of learning that students may have gotten out of that lesson. And it might also help the teacher to know, hey, you know, these particular students didn't get this part of the lesson, so I might need to go back and reteach it tomorrow. Or these students really got this. I can expand and I can go beyond this topic tomorrow. So it's having a clearly outlined plan, it's having smooth transitions, it's having materials at the ready and being able to go through the lesson smoothly, with students knowing what's expected at each point. And then another piece that I want to see from students is I want to know that they are highly engaged. So for example, during a whole group lesson, I want to see the teacher asking questions and students giving feedback. And I want to see many students having that opportunity so that they're scaffolding the learning for one another. During the group time, I want to see students that are actively engaged, and maybe it's centers. Maybe at this small group they're working on word work and they're using manipulatives. Maybe at this small group center they're using technology and they might have a Chromebook or be working at a computer pod. And then at this small group might be meeting with the teacher for a period of time. So there's high engagement. And then another thing that, excuse me, I would want to see is at the end of the lesson, I would want to know that children were able to articulate back to the teacher what they learned, so that, you know, that's sort of like how we would know, okay, the kids got this today. So, and then in terms of giving feedback to teachers, what I would do is I would meet with the teacher. Depending on the situation, it could be that I'm just walking through the classroom and I might leave a sticky note on the teacher's desk, or leave a little note that says, hey, I really liked this part of the lesson. That was really great. Or I really liked the answer that this student got. It really showed me that they understood what you were teaching. Or if it's during part of their evaluation, I would meet with that teacher in a more formal way, and I would discuss and say, you know, what did you think about this lesson? How did you think it went? Did it go the way you thought it would? What was different? You know, are there any things that you would change? And then if I have suggestions, if things maybe didn't go so well, I would give clear feedback about what they might want to try, or what they could maybe try to improve on for the next time. So, depending on the situation.
How would you deal if there were to be certain budget cuts? What would you do to make sure their activities are there, and how would you involve everyone to make sure that the students have what they need?
So in terms of budget cuts, that's sort of more of a discussion that I think would happen at the district level, working with administrators in other buildings and working with the superintendent. What I would want to do is I would want to look across my building, and if we had to make cuts, look and see, like, what are the priority things that we want to hang on to? What are some things that staff feel really strongly about, and what are some things where we feel like, okay, we could get away with not having this? And budget cuts are really hard because nobody ever really wants to give anything up. But if we had to prioritize and things had to be had to be cut in one way or another, it would be a lot of discussion with my staff around, what are the things that we feel most strongly about, that we feel are needed to hang on to, and then what are some things that we feel like we could get away with not having, but that we could still sort of maintain some of those attributes as we go forward. But that's a tricky question to answer. I feel like it's a lot of discussion, and it would be involving, some with my staff, but then district discussions as well. Because maybe resources could be allocated somehow, and I would look to see how we could allocate resources differently if we had to, depending on the situation. So one of the things in my district right now, in my school currently, I had asked a year and a half ago for an additional kindergarten teacher, but also wanted to get a math interventionist. And so what's happened is that this is sort of a way, it's not a cut, but it's sort of like something that we needed. It was a need. And so one of the things that finally I was able to get was the kindergarten teacher. So it was sort of like making that decision. Is it more important to decrease class size at the kindergarten level, or is a math interventionist more important? To me, decreasing class size at the kindergarten level was more important. And I'm working with teachers around building up strategies that they can use in the classrooms around math intervention. So that kind of addresses, in some ways, what you're talking about with prioritizing positions and reallocating the resources. It's tricky. So just looking at the needs, I think, is the most important. Yep. Okay.
How would your current faculty describe you as a leader?
I think my current faculty would describe me as somebody who gets things done, someone who is open-minded, someone who is very positive and energetic. I know that one of my teachers said to me, you've raised the bar on leadership. I got a really nice compliment from one of my teachers who actually retired at the end of this year. I have a very veteran staff in my building. And she said to me, Carrie, this is the first time that my students actually knew who the principal was. So I thought that spoke volumes in terms of visibility and being available to students and teachers. I think that they would say I'm collaborative and that I also think outside of the box. So do I speak a second language? Unfortunately, I don't speak a second language. I did take French when I was in high school, and I really don't have a reason as to the why not. It's just, I love learning. I love learning about so many different things. My main focus over the past number of years has been educational leadership and working through completing my doctorate, raising my family, working full-time. So I'm not opposed to learning a foreign language. And I think one of the reasons why I probably haven't learned a foreign language is because at home, I wouldn't have anyone to practice with. So I think that's really huge when you're trying to learn a new language, that you need that practice. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, but it's not something that I've learned recently. So yeah, that's a great question. So thank you. Sure. So in closing, I want to say thank you so much for this great opportunity. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be a finalist for this position. I would be truly honored to serve as a principal at the Brookside. This community seems like a great community, and I've loved visiting and getting to know more about your school district and about your town. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Gary.